everyone's has some form of adverse childhood experience. Everyone's had some form of trauma. And if we can give them just one technique or one tool that allows them to shift from sympathetic back into parasympathetic when they're in one of those heightened states, and them to be present, then what they're able to do is, instead of reacting to everything that's being bombarded at them, they take a moment and they can respond. And like you're saying, sometimes that's going to give them the opportunity to maybe say no to making a dumb decision and using something, or do something and not react in a way that might save their lives for a lot of these kids.
Andres, great to have you on the podcast.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being here.
Fantastic. I want to ask you a little bit about your background. And I know you have a really long story of being involved with meditation and stuff like that. Can you just give the listeners a little bit about your background?
Yeah, sure. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself and Holistic Life Foundation. So back in college in like 2000, myself and my two business partners, we met, and we just noticed a lot of suffering going on in the world, right? There's a lot of struggle, and we felt like a lot of people weren't doing stuff about it. So we wanted to help. We didn't know in which way. We're really into like superheroes and comics. So we just thought, hey, we're going to save the world somehow, right? And then luckily for us, we met my business partner's uncle. His name's Uncle Will. When I talk, you'll hear me reference him a lot because he's kind of the guy that introduces us to a lot of the practices that we've now been introducing to communities all over the world. And he basically had this little book on his altar with some really cool meditations. And me and my buddies were like, man, we want to learn that stuff, right? And he's like, all right, so Makey promised two things. The first thing was he promised that we wouldn't just be students, we would have to be teachers. So he said that I'm willing to teach you so long as you go out in the world and make an impact. And he also wanted us to show up at 4 a.m. the next day. It was a little late, you know, I'm fresh out of college. We were having a few libations. So you can tell he's kind of testing us a little, right? Next day we show up 4 o'clock in the morning. We're ready to rock and roll. You know, we got our notebooks out and he's looking at us like, what are y'all doing? We're like, we taking notes. Like, we really want to learn this stuff, right? So, fast forward a few years and we've really gotten into our practice, doing a lot of the mat-based stuff, doing the breath work, doing the meditation. And it's transformed us completely. We start seeing the world through different eyes, hearing the world through different ears. And we get an opportunity to work with these 15 problem students at this elementary school. So they want us to be football coaches. We decide, hey, instead, can we teach them some of this yoga stuff that we've been doing? Because we saw the transformation that happened within us and we thought it could benefit them. Me in particular, I didn't have the background that my business partners did. They meditated when they were younger with their parents, but this is completely brand new to me. So I remember thinking, man, if someone would have taught me this when I was younger, it'd be great, right? So we start working with the kids. We pick up 10 of them at detention. Next week, only 7 of them, then only 5 of them, and then none of them. And now the teachers and the principal, the parents are like, man, we don't know what y'all doing with the kids, but keep doing it because it's working, right? So fast forward a little, we stick with that group. And one day we meet this gentleman. He's a doctor from Penn State. And he wants to do a study on our program because he believes in the work we're doing. And we kind of look at him like, what do we need to study for, man? Like, we know this works. We didn't make any of these practices up. They're thousands of years old, right? And he's like, no, we need some evidence that it's really going to help you out. So we ended up teaming up with him and Johns Hopkins, and we did the first ever randomized control trial study on urban youth and mindfulness practices. Great results, saw the children really were able to focus better, help them with ruminating thoughts. And then we started growing from there. It was one of the first studies ever. So anytime someone reached out to us, they were like, hey, we saw the study and you all wrote the curriculum. Can you tell us how you get these kids engaged? That was probably around 14 years ago. So now we've been doing this for over a quarter century now, 25 years. Our birthday will be in December. And it's amazing to see really the dynamic and how it shifted a little to really providing trauma-informed practices. So seeing the impact of what's going on in these children's lives, adults as well. What's going on in their neighborhoods, in their communities, things, whether it's their personal trauma or secondary trauma, intergenerational trauma, and really providing them with a multitude of tools and techniques, whether it's breath work, movement, or meditation practices to help them better self-regulate and learn to love themselves more. I think when that happens, they learn to love others more, and it just starts spreading throughout communities. So that's the basic gist on how we got started and And right now we're expanding into a whole bunch of communities. We're based out of Baltimore, but now we have our Mindful Moment program in Chicago and Denver, Milwaukee, and then there's a Mohawk reservation on the border of New York and Canada that we work at as well. But it's really exciting. You know, I think it's powerful when an individual learns how to be more mindful of their breath, allows them to still themselves and be more present. And a lot of these, awareness-based and meditation practices really can do some healing. So it's been a magical journey.
Well, I'm dying to know, what do you feel, since you've been teaching this for so long, what do you think keeps people from exploring that in 2025, almost 2026? Like, we have the stats, science to back it up. It's no longer woo-woo. So like, what keeps people from just trying it out? I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. The woo-woo, you hit it right on the head, because definitely when, like 20 some years ago, people would be looking at it's like this hippy dippy flower power stuff. We're not doing this. And you're right, there's tons of evidence out there. There's tons of research that's been done that's shown the benefits. I think I wish I could put something on it. I think there's still a little bit of the woo-woo. I got to be honest. I do think that maybe some of the way that the practices are delivered are delivered incorrectly. A lot of times people just be like, all right, hey, we're going to meditate. And then they just tell you to be quiet. And you just sit there. And that's very difficult if you face trauma. That's very difficult if you can't control your mind. And that can be more detrimental than beneficial to you. So I think sometimes the way the practices are delivered aren't really helping it out any. I also think religion comes into it as well. Unfortunately, I think that people think these practices are religious based, and they are not. I think a lot of times meditation gets affiliated with like Buddhism or Hinduism. It's really it's just a practice, right? It's a tool and a technique that all of us should be able to access and be able to learn how to center ourselves and be more present. So I wish I could say one thing and then we could get it solved, but ideally just getting more and more people introduced to it and trying it. I think that's the first step on a long journey, and every journey starts with that first step. So hopefully we can start getting people to start exploring more and trying.
Yeah, that's awesome, because I've been into trying to help people curb what they eat so they don't have so many toxins in their body. For like 11, 12 years, I've been writing books and doing programs and courses and teaching stuff at the libraries for free, and people slough it off the same way they're just like, oh, what are you going to tell me? Go gluten free. Okay. I like bread. I'm like,
no, but it's still true. Like, you think about, like, everyone knows sugar is addictive and horrible for you. Yeah. Everyone when they eat a whole bunch of bread, they feel bloated and they don't feel good the next day. But everyone just looks, like you said, like, it's all right. I like pizza. I'm gonna keep eating. I like my gummy bears and my sour kids. It's crazy. Yeah,
there's so many fun ways to substitute in something healthy, something rewarding for these toxic foods, habits, whatever, and that's where I think people, that's where they need the education first. They don't get that, because just like you're saying with the meditation, they're not willing to listen even just for 20 minutes. It's the whole attention deficit disorder realm. Everybody's like on this spectrum where you can't pay attention for more than 90 seconds unless it's Kim Kardashian telling you she's at the Starbucks around the corner.
It's certainly how it is nowadays, unfortunately.
So I think it's about fast education, and then it's about letting people start asking questions. And Dr. Miller, I love, he calls them the black hat questions. You didn't make that up, I know, but they're really inquisitive, intriguing questions that get people talking in depth quickly. That's what we need more of. And that's what people need to be able to do. I always say the best question gets you the best answer, because you can just ask a general question and then you get a general answer usually. And then that's enough for me. And no, I'm not going to do it, or I'll try it. And you're not even really motivated and you just don't dig in. And then they never experience all these benefits of this whole lifestyle, the whole holistic world.
Yeah, I certainly believe education is huge. You guys, some people just need to know that these practices are even out there. And even if they do know that they're out there and they ignore them a while, just kind of keep educating them more and more and hoping that they will try to change or try to a new practice or a new technique or a new way of living. And then being a scientist, that's something our teacher used to always say to us. He used to say, don't believe anything I'm saying, right? I can be lying to you. The book you read can be lying to you. Be a scientist. If I'm telling you, it's like you're saying, sugar's bad for you, and you really want to know if it's bad for you, well, stop eating sugar for a little while and see how it makes you feel, right?
Yeah, try it out.
Try
That's
it.
right.
You know, don't just, that's a difference between theory and wisdom, right? People can read all the books in the world, but they never really experience it, and they don't know. And we see that. We see people saying, I'm not into meditation, or I don't do that breathing stuff. And then I'm like, well, just take a few deep breaths with me. And then they open their eyes up and they're like, wow, like, I feel really peaceful now. Like, I'm like, yeah, and all you do is take a few deep breaths, you gotta experience it, that when you experience it yourself, that's when you get the real knowledge. So be willing to be that scientist, right?
Become your own science experiment.
Exactly.
Be your own science experiment. And I'm my own science experiment through life. I'm wondering with the kids these days, we were talking about this, the cell phone and how it interrupts and messes with their brain chemistry at such a young age. What are you seeing these days with kids paying attention and stuff like that?
I mean, certainly these devices are like little zombie boxes for them, right? They just and it's interesting because they can be used for good means, right? You can have some good material on these devices and educate children. It's just unfortunate that the way that social media and everything is really pulling them is in a direction for more of that Kim Kardashian zombie, just like there's like drones, and it's unfortunate because some of our best teachers are nature, the grass and the sky and the mountains and the stars. And if we just take time to disconnect from these so that we can really connect to everything and everyone around us, I think it would make the world a much better place. And you can see how kids, it's very difficult. I see young children who are addicted to it and have tantrums. You take their iPad away or their phone, and it's screaming, yelling, dysregulation. They're unsympathetic, and their brains are getting wired to be locked into this device. And it's unfortunate.
One way we could help regulate for the youth with this is when Twitter first came out. I got on the stuff, and I had a full-time job, so I was just playing around. And it was annoying to me because of all the popular crap and it was brain dead stuff, right? To try to keep your brain occupied, quick edits and all that. And my little sister's a journalist. She's a reporter for a newspaper, and she kept sending me cool stuff. And I was like, how do you find all this cool stuff? She said, well, my secret is I only follow really quality stuff. I won't hit follow. I won't even hit like, because then you're going to get more stuff fed back to you.
Oh, yeah.
She only follows really, intelligent, good stuff that she wants to know more about. So if you could just take away the kid's device right now and say, okay, look, here's a new one. There's nothing on it. Okay. I want you to go in and you tell them to do that. You say, what are you interested in? What's healthy? What's good for your brain? What's good for your future? Let's look at and just follow. I want you to pick 12 things and just follow that. And when you pick up that device, that's all for now. Let's just try it out. And then pick 2 friends who are healthy and are nice to you and good to you and care about your well-being. And those are the only people that you're allowed to text and talk to for now on that device. And somehow, just make it where it's educational, healthy. And then you put, like you said, you put a breathing YouTuber on there. You put a breathworks, you put a meditation, expert on there, a couple different things like that, because that's what I'm doing now. I'm doing it now on my phone. I love it. When I want to break from something, my Instagram feed is nothing but stuff that I like that's healthy. It's not stupid politics. It's not dumb, crazy crap. It's fun. It's cool. It's educational. Or if I don't want the educational stuff, it's stuff that's just healthy for my thinking. It's some positive like Zen stuff, or like you said, nature, somebody playing with some big lions, because I love cats. Oh my God, you get the dopamine rush. You're like, oh man, that's on my bucket list.
That's really cool. Yeah. I mean, again, I think to just build on what you're saying, it's a large part of them, or I wouldn't say even this, everyone, right? Everyone kind of just leaning towards being a little more aware and mindful of what they're watching and what they're clicking. Because, you know, you can, within a day, you could change your whole feed by just going to a particular type of video over and over. It's immediate. You could just, if you wanted to learn how to be a concert pianist, and all you did was watch concert pianists over and over again, the next day when you open your feed up. So it really is constantly
good point,
manipulating and changing based on your habit patterns. So it's really up to you, which is kind of what life is like. We were saying, even about being a scientist, right? All this is up to you. It takes you to make a decision and want to change. And I know, Doctor, you know, of most people, what you did with yourself. I mean, you're like a living example of a science experiment. And you know, it's like incredible, right? You know, like it really is what you put your mind to and what you decide to focus on and the transformations that can occur. And that's the thing, especially with youth, because, you know, with neuroplasticity and what's going on with their brains, they're in that stage where all those things are forming and changing, and they can alter it, and they can switch it. But it's better to do it when they're young, because that's when those bonds and those patterns are really forming, and those wrinkles are really, you know, getting finer and finer.
And you know, I didn't have anybody like you, Andres, to look up to as a model. My parents were very good to us, but they didn't do anything extracurricular, basically. So I was just kind of a regular kid, you know, and it's fine. I had a great childhood, but I didn't have any models like that. And I had to find all this stuff myself, like after college, after 4 years in a career field I didn't like. Finally, then I was like, oh my God, I got to kind of do the Zen thing and figure out who I am, what I like, how I want to be unique, all of that. But you know, the younger kids now, I think they need the role models most of all, because like Dr. Miller and I were talking about, we're doing this addiction prevention and addiction rescue course, but you know, it'd be nice to share it with people before they ever dig in and become addicted to something, because that's what the trauma leads you to. That's what the low self-esteem leads you to and makes you more susceptible. And if you don't choose to do it yourself, your friends will choose for you to do it because they see you're vulnerable, you know? So I'm sure, man, you wouldn't even have to ask, but I bet you thousands of these kids were at the crossroads at some point after they worked with you and were like, no thanks, dude, and just said no to some crap because they know where you're at, you know. And my motto now, really, in the past few years, is you can't really tell people to do something and have them listen. You got to model it. If you model it really well, then they ask you a couple key questions, then they start digging, then they start copying, then they start following. That's the way. It's not, oh, let me tell you, you got to do this, this, and this, and you know, you just start dictating. Nobody listens to you. They don't do it.
No, and that's the problem, I think, especially with youth. They know, they don't feel like they're heard. They don't have a voice, and no one really listens. So, I mean, the majority, we talk about this all the time, the majority of people don't listen good at all. You know, no one's really doing any active listening. If anything, the moment someone starts talking, our mind starts thinking of our response.
That's true. I was a school teacher. It happens all the time. I was an elementary school teacher, but you know what did it? I think what did it was, and I'm not trying to tangent, but this is relevant, is MTV. Because when I was about 10 or 11 years old, that's when MTV came out. I'm 57. MTV came out, okay? It was the first time you ever saw where they edited everything real quick, and they edited to the beat of the songs. It was all music videos. There was nothing else. MTV was music video. And you were like, your eyes, man, it'd light up the whole room. Everything was changing. It was going to the beat. And it gave everyone short attention span to everything else. Like if you started watching a show or a movie and it was filmed on like one camera and it took 30 seconds to change the angle, or like you're saying, if there's a talking head on a video and they're not using any hand motions and you're just a bobblehead talking, you're done. You're cooked. Like you said, in 2 minutes, man, they're tuning you out. I don't care if they're sitting there quietly. They'll be playing with their fingers. They're tuning you out. You're done.
It's great to have these practices to help them learn how to deal with those thoughts in their mind more. and not identify
Yeah.
thoughts and be able to take a break and be. It's something we talk about a lot. We should be called human doings instead of human beings, because we're always doing stuff, right? And our brain and our mind. What did my teacher called the mind a drunk monkey on LSD. That's what he called it.
Yeah, I actually got this monkey mind back here.
There you go. Right. Yeah.
It's,
it's great to be able to work with that and understand that it's a practice. It's something that we're working with. It's part of the human experience. We're always going to have thoughts. We're always going to be working with our mind. And just like you were saying, Sean, like if we can get it to the kids early, right? To them, because everyone's has some form of adverse childhood experience. Everyone's had some form of trauma. And if we can give them just one technique or one tool that allows them to shift from sympathetic back into parasympathetic when they're in one of those heightened states, and for them to be present, then what they're able to do is, instead of reacting to everything that's being bombarded at them, they take a moment and they can respond. And like you're saying, sometimes that's going to give them the opportunity to maybe say no to making a dumb decision and using something that everyone else is using, or do something and not react in a way that might save their lives for a lot of these kids in some of their neighborhoods and environments. Right?
Because I taught 3rd and 4th grade for several years at elementary, public and private school. And I always had 2 or 3, rascals, man. They were male and female, and they were resilient, man. And they were tough, and they'd be cussing, or they'd be going on the sites on the web they weren't supposed to. And, we'd have to shut it down and sit down with the parents and the principal or the counselors, whatever. But, they were good kids, man. That's why I got into elementary school teaching, because you're at that 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, man. They are navigating, and that's when because before that they're not really navigating. They're just sponges, and they're just looking around and absorbing. But they start navigating. They got that personality going, and they want to be unique and different or whatever. And that's like you're saying, man. So I'd like you to just tell us like a day in the life of a class, like you and your buddies, you show up somewhere and tell us about what it's like just for that hour or whatever when you're with them.
So it just varies, right? When we initially started, we had an after school program, right? So that would last like 3 hours. And now we have so many different programs. Points we have stuff where it's in school stuff, right? So we might do a residency, which is a week-long program. We're in the school. We're communicating with every kid, every staff member. Sometimes we'll have a school-wide initiative, like the programs that I was telling you we had in all those cities, in Milwaukee, Chicago, Denver, here in Baltimore.
When you're into school, is it like a whole auditorium, or are you popping into classrooms?
It varies. So like our mindful moment program, there's a room alternative to suspension room by itself. That's our main program now. So if a kid is in crisis or is going through something, or just feels like they need a break, they can come to our room. We'll do some active listening, some mirroring, listen to them for a second, and then share a practice with them, a breath, a meditation. Then we'll send them back to that classroom. Now that program eliminates punitive practices in schools. It's incredible. We've been in schools where when we start, the numbers like 140 suspensions. Year 2, it'll be double digit, and by year 3, single suspensions, if not no suspensions in the school, because kids are now learning how to self-regulate.
Wow.
Really powerful.
So you've been able no suspensions in a school?
Oh yeah, there was a viral video that went out. It was over like 32 million views that we had. It was an Upworthy video, and they framed it as school room changes detention to meditation. And in that school is right in Northwest Baltimore, right in the epicenter where the Freddie Gray uprising happened. We hadn't had a suspension in that school for over 9 years.
Whoa.
Incredible. Yeah. Because instead of sending the kid to the office, you send them to our room, and we actually listen to them. A lot of times when kids are going through stuff, this is adults as well, right? Needs aren't being met. It's usually like even Maslow's, the basic needs.
Yeah.
They're tired.
Yeah.
They're hungry. Or kids, a lot of times when they're reacting or pushing out like that, it's because they don't want you to know about something. They might.
Yeah, my kids, the parents would be fighting or getting divorced or talking about divorce, and they'd be crazy in class, dude.
Oh yeah, or they couldn't read, and when it's time to read, Johnny's gonna make sure he yells something or punches someone, because then he gets sent away and then no one finds out that Johnny can't read. It's
Oh,
really about emotional control.
deflecting.
I have
Yeah.
a great story. There's this young lady. So she lived in the same projects as where Freddie Gray lived in West Baltimore. She had, a tough upbringing, didn't have as much material stuff as some of her peers. So her backpack didn't look as cool. Her jeans and clothes weren't as fly, right? So kids would tease her. And it was interesting. We never understood why kids teased her, because her brother told her how to throw her hands. He was a boxer. So whenever they tease her, she would beat the kids up. So after a while, I learned, man, maybe you should be picking on her so much because he's whooping y'all, right? So one day we're coming around the corner. She must have been in the fifth grade at this time. We're with the principal at the school we're working at. And we see the girl, she's got this kid grabbed by the shirt, thrown up against the lockers. And you can tell she's ready to, hit this kid. And she looks at us. She looks at the kid. She looks at us. And she drops the kid and she goes, "You lucky I meditate." And then she started breathing. It was, and all of us were like, what? And
we needed that on video.
Incredible. Yeah. So it's powerful to see the difference and the change, and I think a large part is the tools we give, but I think a lot of it really is just learning to love yourself. And it really is difficult to love others and to be compassionate and empathetic to other people if you don't love yourself. And when you start learning to love yourself, your self-worth increases more. I remember we did it was a conference in Estes Park in Colorado, probably like 800 people, and a bunch of yogis, meditators, all this type of stuff. And we do this exercise, and we say, we make everyone go and see a light within themselves and say, "I love you" to themselves. And then we make everyone look at the person next to them and see the light in that person and say, "I love you" to that person, the stranger. And then we make everyone look at everyone in the room and scream out at the top of their lungs, "I love you," right? We're big, believers that love is the most powerful force in the universe. So at the end of the conference, this person comes up to us. It was a yoga practitioner. And they said something like, "I've been doing this for like 30 years, and I can't remember the last time I said I love you to myself." And it was so powerful. And you could see how they lit them up. And when you see that with kids in particular, I mean, with adults too, because that's someone who's, in their 50s or so. But with kids, it's really empowering. It's powerful, and it makes such a huge difference. I think that's a lot of what we're doing is we're just reminding people about their value and how to take care of themselves. And it's much easier to do when that crazy monkey mind isn't leading you this way or leading you that way, but you're able to be present and set your sails and go in whatever direction you want to go and achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve.
Well, I would love to know, Andres, what are some ways that you teach these kids self-regulation? Maybe it's easier to teach them than it is to adults, perhaps.
Yeah, I think the first thing we do is the breath. So it sounds crazy. Whenever I go anywhere, the first thing I do is I say, "All right, today I'm going to teach you how to breathe." And people always look at me like, "Man, I'm breathing. What you mean?" Right? But it's just, we forget to breathe the right way. We don't use, we don't breathe through our nose the way we're supposed to. We don't use the full capacity of our lungs. We're doing a lot of top heavy breathing, clavicular breathing. We're only using 10% of our lung capacity. We'll be doing diaphragmatic breathing that brings in more oxygen, that helps clean our blood more, that helps digest our food better. And just the simple, basic concept of breathing and showing people how to strengthen their diaphragm and make it so they can pull in more oxygen, is that technique alone we start with that. That's the first thing we do any and everywhere we go. And then it just makes them more aware, because then they catch themselves when they're breathing in and out of their mouths, or they can see when they're in a heightened state, how they shift. Because when we get in stress mode, when we're in sympathetic of our autonomic nervous system, our body naturally breathes through our mouths. Adrenaline levels increase, cortisol levels increase. All this is our natural stress response. And that's okay for like 1 to 2 hours. The problem is that most of us are bombarded all day long. We have our devices, we have our internal trauma and struggles, and we're in sympathetic the whole time. That's why adults get ulcers, because their cortisol levels are pumping all the time, and they don't know how to regulate themselves and shift them back into their nice regular state. So just reminding them and leading them through the breath. And then there's a simple meditation. I know that we're probably coming to end soon. I mean, if you'd like, I can lead you all through a quick little 3-minute practice. And our listeners can, we can all get into a little a little Zen state here, little peace and calm to start our weekends off. How about that?
Sure. Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right. Heck yeah. Okay, great. Well, so for you two and for everyone that's listening, I welcome everyone to get into a comfortable seated position. Ideally, you want to have your head, neck, and spine aligned. If you can, your feet grounded on the floor. And I welcome you to close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so. If not, you can maybe just lighten your gaze or stare at the tip of your nose or point on the wall across from you. But I like to close my eyes. I think it helps block out distractions. And all of our breathing is going to be in and out of our noses. So we'll take a few together and then I'll guide you through this simple practice. So just take a nice deep breath in through your nose. And go ahead and breathe it all out. One more inhale through our nose. Exhale it all out. We'll do one more together. Nice, long, slow, deep breath in through your nose. Breathe it all out. And go ahead and keep breathing at your own comfortable pace. Don't put any extra effort into it. With each breath, feel your mind slowing down, your body relaxing. The first thing I'm going to invite you to do is I want you to focus all your attention on your breath and how it feels. So when you inhale, feel the air brushing past your nostrils, your lungs expanding. When you exhale, feel the air brushing back out past your nostrils. So the only sensation that you feel right now is that of your breath. You no longer feel the weight of the clothes on your skin, your body on the chair, your feet on the ground. All you feel is each breath coming in, and each breath leaving out. If you happen to get distracted by a thought, a sound, or sensation, that's fine. Life is filled with distractions. Just recognize the distraction, let it pass, and return your attention back to the breath and how it feels. Each inhale and each exhale. Continue to keep our attention on our breath, but we're going to shift it away from how it feels to now. I want you to focus on how it sounds. You may not have noticed this before, but your inhale and your exhale sound slightly different. So that all you hear besides my voice guiding you right now is the sound of your breath. Each inhale and each exhale. No longer hear the fan of your computer or the cars driving by. All you hear is your inhales and your exhales. Again, remembering if you happen to get distracted, it's cool. Just recognize the distraction. Let it pass. And return your attention back to your breath and the sound that it makes, entering and exiting your body. start here, I just kind of invite you to focus your mind on your breath. So it's completely one-pointed, completely at attention with your breath. Each inhale, each exhale, how they feel and how they sound. Your mind focused on your breath. Again, if a thought, sound, or sensation present themselves, recognize them, let it pass, return your mind to your breath, feeling and sound of each inhale and each exhale. Slowly bring our attention back to our bodies. We can do so just by wiggling our fingers and our toes a little. Roll around your wrists, your ankles. Stretch your neck out by either doing a neck roll both ways, or you can just turn your head from side to side. If you happen to have your eyes closed, you can slowly blink your eyes open and come back to your senses.
Thank you.
Yeah, all right. Simple, easy. It only takes a few minutes. It's a way to get yourself nice and present. Always a great way to start your day.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for coming on. Is there where can people reach out to you?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So please, so our website's HLF, like Harry, Larry, Frank, INC.org. Phone number is 410-235-4300. info@hlfinc.org. There's any way to reach us, but please, if you want us to come into your community, help out, we do trainings, speaking engagements. We're happy to just be a resource and support you in any initiatives that you have. And yeah, just really appreciate you having me on.